Can you be my date for one day? The widowed CEO Millionaire begged the waitress, who reminded him of his wife. The Saturday night crowd buzzed inside Bordeaux Lights, the kind of upscale restaurant where wine glasses clinked softly and violins whispered above the hum of polished conversations. Golden lights pooled across linen-covered tables. Waiters moved with purpose. Among them, Lily moved fast but gracefully, balancing a tray in one hand and water pitchers in the other. At 24, she had mastered the rhythm of the place, attentive, discreet, always smiling despite the dull ache behind her eyes. Her long blonde hair was tied into a loose ponytail, a few strands escaping to frame her face. In the far corner, at a table set for one, sat a man who barely touched his food. Alex Carter, 32, wore a charcoal gray suit without a tie. He looked like he belonged somewhere louder, more powerful. Yet tonight, he sat still, eyes distant, swirling the wine in his glass without sipping. The world moved around him, fast, full, but he remained untouched, like a man trying to remember why he had come at all. Then it happened. From the center of the room, voices rose. A group of young professionals was complaining loudly about their main courses. One of the newer servers, barely past training, stood frozen, clutching her notepad, eyes darting from one annoyed face to another. Lily stepped in, calm and unshaken. "I am so sorry the dish didn't meet expectations," she said gently, her voice warm. "Allow me to replace it right away, and as a small gesture, our chef would like to offer the table a complimentary dessert of your choice. We want you to leave here smiling." The tension deflated. The group nodded. A few mumbled thanks. Lily gave a quick, professional smile and walked away, the new server trailing behind her like a shadow. Alex watched the entire thing. He blinked once. Then he slowly set down his wine. A few minutes later, Lily passed by the side station to refill a water pitcher. She was humming under her breath, thinking about getting through the last hour of her shift. She did not notice Alex approach until he stood beside the counter, close enough for her to turn instinctively. "I'm sorry for the interruption," he said, voice steady, "but may I ask you something unusual?" Lily furrowed her brow. Sure?" He glanced around, then looked directly into her eyes. His were clear, hazel green, and a little too serious. "Would you be my date? Just for one day?" She stared. Excuse me?" she asked, blinking. "I know it sounds strange," Alex continued quickly, "but my mother, she's sick, very sick. The doctors say she only has a few months left, and she's worried about me being alone since my wife passed." Lily's expression softened slightly. "She keeps asking if I've met someone. She wants to meet the woman I'm seeing. I've lied. Said I have, just to keep her calm." He exhaled. "But now, she wants to meet her, and I don't know what to do." "So you want me," Lily said slowly, "to pretend to be your girlfriend for one day, for your mother?" Alex nodded. "I cannot hire an actress. It would feel fake, empty. I need someone real, someone kind. Tonight, I saw you. You were thoughtful, graceful, and honest." He paused. "That's the kind of woman my mother would believe in." Lily felt the world tilt slightly. This was insane, absurd. And yet, something about his tone, the quiet urgency, the way his fingers twitched against the counter, told her this man was not playing games. She asked, cautiously, "And after that?" "Nothing. Just dinner, one evening, one conversation. Then you go back to your life, and I let my mother go, a little more peacefully." He slid something onto the small marble counter between them, a sleek business card, followed by a folded check. She glanced at the amount and blinked, stunned. It was more than she made in 2 months. "If you say no, I understand," Alex said, truly. "But if you say yes, you'd be doing more than you know." Lily looked up at him. His jaw was tense, his shoulders drawn, a man holding too much pain in too small a space. She said nothing. Alex lowered his eyes, then whispered, "Please, just 24 hours." Lily stared at the check long after Alex left the restaurant. She did not sleep much that night. The next morning she sat at her tiny kitchen table, staring at a half-eaten piece of toast. The check lay unopened on the counter. She had every reason to say no. But when she closed her eyes, she kept seeing his face, not powerful or rich, just afraid. A man clinging to the last chance of comforting his dying mother. By noon, she had texted the number on the card. "I'll do it, but just this once." The reply came almost instantly. "Thank you. I'll pick you up at 2. They drove quietly for a while. Alex didn't talk much. He focused on the road, his expression calm, but his fingers drummed silently against the steering wheel. Eventually, they pulled up in front of a boutique Lily had only seen in magazines, all glass walls, soft lighting, and gowns on silver mannequins. She hesitated as he opened the door for her. "I can't afford anything in there," she said under her breath. "You won't need to," Alex replied gently. "This is part of the deal." Inside, the staff seemed to know him. A stylist approached immediately. Alex stepped aside and said softly, "I'll wait over there. Take your time." It felt surreal. Lily tried on a few dresses, most of which felt far too elegant for someone like her. But then the stylist handed her a silk gown, pale blue, with a neckline that dipped just enough to be elegant, but modest. When she stepped out of the fitting room, brushing her fingers nervously along the fabric, the room went quiet. Alex stood up. For a full second, he just stared. Her hair had been let down, soft curls falling around her shoulders. Her skin glowed under the boutique lights, and for a fleeting moment, Alex felt like someone had taken a memory from his heart and turned it into flesh. He blinked, looked away, pretended to adjust his cufflinks, and discreetly wiped the corner of his eye. "She looks like her," he thought, "but she isn't. And maybe that's what scares me most." When he turned back, Lily was watching him, puzzled, cautious. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, voice low. "You look perfect." Lily smiled politely, but something in her chest shifted. She had expected to feel like an object, a hired part in a well-rehearsed show. But his reaction was not performance. It was something else. They left the store just before sunset. Alex, without a word, stepped ahead and opened the car door for her. No flourish, just a quiet act of care. Lily glanced at him, the suit, the silence, the weariness behind his eyes. No one opened doors for her, not anymore. She slid into the passenger seat. The dress made her sit straighter, like she had stepped into someone else's life. Alex closed the door gently behind her and walked around to the driver's side. As they pulled out into traffic, Lily peeked at him through the window reflection. His jaw was clenched, his gaze fixed on the road. But behind the polished exterior she saw it now, the loneliness, thick as fog. Not the loneliness of a rich man surrounded by people, but the deeper kind, the kind that came from losing someone irreplaceable and never letting anyone close again. For a brief second, she wondered what his wife had been like, and whether he had ever let himself grieve. They did not speak much on the way home. But when Alex dropped her off, he walked her to the front steps and simply said, "Thank you." Lily hesitated, then asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He looked at her. "No, but I have to." And with that, he left. The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and fading flowers. Alex walked ahead, his steps steady but his hands clenched. Lily followed a pace behind, her pale blue dress under a beige coat, holding a bouquet of soft white lilies Alex had picked up on the way. She didn't know why she was nervous. This wasn't real. And yet, somehow, It was. A nurse greeted them and led the way down a quiet corridor. At the far end, sunlight filtered through blinds, touching the thin figure on the bed with a soft gold. "Mom," Alex said gently. The woman turned her head. Her face was pale, framed by wisps of gray hair, but her eyes, bright green, piercing, lit up the moment she saw them. And then she saw Lily. "Oh," she whispered. She's beautiful." Alex opened his mouth, but before he could speak, his mother reached out and took Lily's hand. "You look just like her. Like Sophie." Lily blinked. Sophie. That was his wife's name. The old woman's fingers tightened around hers. "Thank you for coming, sweetheart. I knew my son would find someone with a kind soul." Alex started to speak again, but stopped. His throat closed. The words stuck somewhere between guilt and grief. Lily didn't pull away. She sat down beside the bed, still holding the woman's hand, heart pounding. They stayed like that through a quiet lunch. The hospital staff had arranged a small table beside the window. A nurse brought soup, bread, and tea. They ate slowly, the silence broken only by soft conversation. Mrs. Carter talked about Alex's childhood, how he used to wear mismatched socks and name every bird he saw. Her voice, though thin, carried laughter. Alex smiled, but his eyes stayed on Lily. She laughed politely, then stood up to stretch her legs. Her gaze drifted across the room and landed on a shelf above the dresser. On it sat a wedding photo. The bride was radiant, her blonde hair pulled into an elegant twist, her smile bright and wide. The resemblance made Lily's breath hitch. It was like looking into a mirror, if the mirror reflected another life. She stepped back, suddenly uneasy. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I need to make a phone call." Alex turned, watching her walk to the hallway. Lily leaned against the wall, inhaling sharply. She had agreed to this for a good reason, but that photo, that smile, it made her feel like an intruder. Like she had wandered into sacred space, uninvited. Then, from inside, she heard a sharp cough. "Mrs. Carter." She paused, then turned back. When she re-entered the room, the old woman looked up, grateful. "You're still here," she whispered. Lily nodded and sat again, quietly folding her hands in her lap. Later, as they drove away from the hospital, the sky turned dusky lavender. Neither spoke for a long while. Then Lily glanced over. "She's lovely," she said. Alex kept his eyes on the road. "She is. And your wife," she continued softly. "She must have been too." He didn't answer right away. The city lights began to appear, flickering through the windshield like distant stars. "Finally," he said, "I still love her." Lily looked down at her hands. "I'm not sure I ever stopped," he added. The words hung there, suspended in the silence. And for a moment, the air between them shifted. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't romantic. It was something else, raw and human. Two strangers carrying truths too heavy to say out loud. Lily turned back toward the window. She didn't know what this was, but whatever it became, it had already changed something inside her. And maybe, just maybe, in him too. The second invitation came 3 days later. A short message from Alex. Dinner? No pressure. Just food. Lily stared at it longer than she should have, rereading each word as if they held a hidden code. She replied with a single line. Sure, just food. He picked her up outside the restaurant after her shift. This time, no limo, no driver, just Alex behind the wheel of a quiet gray sedan. He wore a navy sweater instead of a suit, and when she stepped into the car, he smiled. Not the polished, distant smile of a CEO, but something gentler, human. They drove in silence for a while. City lights blurred past the windows, rain misting the glass. He brought her to a tucked-away Italian place with flickering candles and red brick walls. They chose a booth near the back. No cameras, no performances. Just them. They ordered pasta, red wine, and garlic bread too hot to touch. And slowly, the conversation began. He asked what kind of movies she liked. Sad ones, she said, sipping her wine. The kind that make you cry but feel full after. He smiled. Like Italian cinema? She nodded. And some old Japanese films. Quiet. Devastating. He leaned back. I used to think I hated slow movies. But lately, I think they're the only kind I understand. She asked what he used to dream about. Before the money and the meetings. Alex hesitated. I wanted to open a bookstore. Lily blinked. Seriously? He shrugged. A cozy one. With coffee, a reading nook, second-hand titles. My wife and I, we even had a name picked out. Chapter and Soul. He didn't say more. He didn't have to. And you? He asked. She stirred her pasta. I studied photography, black and white film, people in motion. But I dropped out. Why? My little brother, she said softly. He was 12 when my parents died. Someone had to raise him. School could wait. Alex said nothing, but the look in his eyes was warmer than any reply. Later that week, after a long shift, Lily stepped out of the restaurant into sudden rain, cold and sharp. She hadn't brought a coat. As she stood under the awning, arms wrapped tight around herself, a familiar car pulled up beside the curb. The passenger window rolled down. Need a ride? Alex asked. She grinned through damp lashes. That obvious? He handed her his coat without a word. It was warm, soft, carried a faint trace of his cologne. She slipped into the car. You always drive around, rescuing waitresses? Only the ones who make 3-star complaints disappear with a free tiramisu. She laughed. He smiled. Instead of heading home, they ended up at a small park nearby. The rain had faded into drizzle, and the trees shimmered in the lamplight. They sat on a damp bench beneath an overhang. He didn't talk, she didn't either. They just... Saturday. Breathing the cold, listening to leaves drip, sharing silence like it was something sacred. And somehow, that silence said everything they couldn't yet. Alex looked at her once, when she wasn't watching. She was hugging his coat close, hair slightly messy, cheeks pink from the chill. For a moment, she didn't look like Sophie at all. She just looked like Lily. And maybe, for the first time, that was exactly what he needed. The housekeeper had let Lily in with a gentle smile and a note. Mr. Carter will be home in 20 minutes. He asked me to make you some tea. It was her third visit in a week. Alex had invited her over for dinner, just the two of them. No formality, no plans. Lily wandered quietly through the living room while waiting, her steps light, unsure if she was trespassing on something unspoken. A soft piano tune hummed from a speaker in the corner, simple, melancholic. Her gaze drifted to the hallway, then to the half-open door at the end. Inside was a study, dimly lit by afternoon sun, slanting through cream curtains. She hesitated. Then curiosity nudged her forward. The room was lined with shelves of books, a globe by the window, and a piano tucked against the far wall. But it was what lay on the desk that made her pause. Photographs. Dozens of them. One showed a woman in a white summer dress, laughing beside Alex in a vineyard. Another captured her asleep on a couch, a novel splayed across her chest. Frames, loose prints, even old Polaroids, snapshots of a life that no longer existed, but still refused to leave. There was a box, slightly open. Inside were handwritten letters. Lily didn't mean to read them. But one envelope was half pulled out, already torn at the edge. Her fingers, almost without her consent, drew it free. She unfolded the paper. The ink was dark and steady. I'm afraid to love again. Because what if love dies, again? What if I open the door just enough to breathe, and grief walks in wearing a new face. She exhaled, the weight of the words pressing against her chest. "Lily?" The voice behind her was quiet, caught between surprise and fear. She turned. Alex stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He glanced at the letter in her hand, then at her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I shouldn't have." "It's okay." He stepped into the room slowly. "I shouldn't have left that out." She went to put it back in the box. "No," he said gently. "You've already read it. It's only fair I say the rest." He walked past her, rested his hand on the edge of the desk. "I wrote that months ago. Never sent it. Never even meant to. Just needed to get the fear out of my head and onto paper." He looked at her now, not as someone he had hired, not even as someone new, but as someone dangerously close to what he wasn't sure he could handle. "I didn't bring you into my life to replace Sophie," he said softly, "but somehow, when you're here, I remember how it feels to breathe without guilt." Lily's eyes glistened. "I didn't come here to become someone else," she whispered. "I don't want to live in her shadow. I want to be me." She paused. "But if you're willing to let the past be the past, even just a little, I'm willing to see what's next." Alex didn't speak for a long moment. His walls, so carefully built, trembled slightly. He nodded once, slowly. "Then let's start with this moment. No more pretending, no more ghosts." A faint smile played on her lips, and no more unread letters. He chuckled. "Deal." She handed the page back, and he slid it into the box without sealing it shut. Some stories, they both knew, were never truly finished. But maybe this one could finally begin. The hospital room was quiet that morning. Lily had been called in early, not by Alex, but by his mother. She sat beside Mrs. Carter, sunlight streaking through the window, landing gently on the older woman's face. Her features were more gaunt now, her skin delicate like parchment, but her eyes still held that familiar spark, the warm mischief that made people forget the frailty of her body. "I wanted a few minutes alone," Mrs. Carter said, her voice soft but purposeful, "without my son hovering like a mother hen." Lily let out a light chuckle, though her chest tightened. "Of course." Mrs. Carter reached out, her fingers colder than Lily remembered, and took her hand in a tender grip. "He told me you're the reason I smiled again last week." Lily opened her mouth to respond, but the older woman raised her other hand, signaling gently to let her finish. "I've known from the beginning, dear, that you're not really his girlfriend." Lily froze. The smile slipped from her lips, replaced by panic. Her fingers twitched in Mrs. Carter's grasp. But the woman only squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for pretending, for showing up, for saying yes, for giving him something, someone, to hold on to, even for a moment." Lily's eyes stung. She blinked hard, trying to keep the tears from spilling. "And the strange thing is," Mrs. Carter continued, a knowing glint in her gaze, "I don't think you were pretending the whole time." Lily looked away, afraid her silence would say too much. "He's been frozen since Sophie passed," the woman whispered. "Not cold, just paused, as if time left him behind. But you've stirred something in him, Lily. I see it in his eyes when he looks at you. I hear it in the way he talks now. You've given him warmth again." Lily nodded, lips pressed tight, her throat thick with words she couldn't say. Later that day, the hospital courtyard buzzed with quiet celebration. A small charity event was underway. Balloons, folding tables, food stations, soft music drifting through the air. Alex had helped organize it for the pediatric ward. Lily volunteered to help him cook. They stood side by side behind a makeshift counter, hands busy slicing vegetables, trading stories between tasks. Their movements were relaxed, unforced, almost familiar. Lily reached for a tomato just as her hand slipped, a sharp sting. "Ah!" Alex turned instantly. "Lily, are you?" She waved him off, embarrassed. "It's just a nick. I'm fine." But he was already beside her, grabbing napkins, gently wrapping her finger in layers of care. His touch was steady, soft, protective. Their hands met, then paused. Their eyes lifted and held. The world around them quieted, no clinking dishes, no background laughter, no distant beeping monitors. Just this. He leaned in, slowly, carefully. So did she. Their lips touched, a soft meeting of grief and gratitude, of longing and hesitation. It wasn't passionate, it was reverent. When they pulled away, Lily's eyes stayed closed a moment longer. But when she opened them, he had already stepped back. His expression darkened. "I shouldn't have done that." Her face fell. "Why not?" Alex looked away. "I thought I was ready. But I'm not. Not really." She waited for more. It never came. So she stepped back, pulled her hand from his. "I see," she whispered, then turned and walked away. Each step echoed with a silence that screamed. He had told her not to pretend, but it was he who still was. Lily was gone. No call, no message, no goodbye. She had stopped showing up to the restaurant 3 days ago, and when Alex tried calling the number she'd given for emergencies only, it went straight to voicemail. Every time. He left 2 messages. The first was short, formal, uncertain. The second was different, softer, almost pleading, but still, there was no response. A tightness settled in his chest, heavier than he'd expected. He didn't realize how much he had come to anticipate her presence, her laugh, her gaze, the way she tilted her head when she listened. The way her footsteps sounded when she walked toward his table. The silence she brought, that wasn't empty, but comforting. He drove to the hospital, hoping she might be there. Part of him wanted to ask his mother directly, but when he walked into the room, she looked up with an expression that told him everything before she even spoke. "You lost her, didn't you?" Her voice was quiet, but piercing. Alex sat down slowly, eyes cast to the floor. "She was never really mine to lose," he murmured. Mrs. Carter studied him, her voice steady despite her frailness. "Don't be a coward, Alex. That girl, Lily, she made you feel again. I saw it, and I'm not the only one." He looked up, the weight in his eyes finally cracking the mask he'd worn for so long. "She made the world feel real again," he admitted, like the colors came back. "Then what are you doing sitting here?" she asked. There was no answer. He stood. 10 minutes later, Alex was outside Lily's apartment building. It was a modest, older brick place in the quieter part of the city. The hallway smelled faintly of paint and laundry detergent. A cat yawned in the stairwell. The landlord barely glanced up when Alex introduced himself. "She moved out this morning," he said, shrugging. "Left the key. Didn't say much." Room 304 was already empty. The door creaked open. The room was quiet and stripped bare. Bed without sheets, desk cleared. Dust floated in the air where sunlight sliced through the blinds. There was no sign she had ever lived there. Except for one thing. On the desk sat a small photo, face down. Alex picked it up. It was a candid black and white shot of him sitting on the park bench the day it had rained. He remembered that moment clearly. Lily had sat beside him, quiet, thoughtful. She must have taken it when he wasn't looking. His hand trembled slightly. She had felt something. Not because he was broken, not out of pity, but something real, genuine. He turned the photo over. No note, no signature. Just a single line, written in pencil. "You looked at peace here." He stared at those words for a long time, something unraveling inside him. For the first time, the image of Lily in his mind shifted, not as a ghost of Sophie, not as someone filling a void, but as herself. Her laugh, her stubbornness, her quiet strength, her honesty. She wasn't a replacement. She was the new beginning. And he had let her walk away. But not again. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Rachel," he said, voice clear. "I need your help. Remember the idea Lily and I talked about? The space with the open kitchen, the bookshelves, the piano?" "Yes," she replied slowly. "Build it," he said, "exactly as we described, and find someone who can deliver a letter to her." That night, Alex returned to the nearly finished space. He helped arrange the books, placed the piano by the window, and lit the small reading lamps. Then he sat at the center table and wrote. One ivory card. No company logo, no dramatic confessions. Just one sentence, in his handwriting. "This time, let's not pretend. Just come as you are." He left it on the windowsill and waited. Lily stood at the entrance, her hand resting lightly on the doorframe. She wore the same pale blue silk dress, the very one she'd stepped out in on that first day, the one Alex had chosen for her without knowing how much it would matter. Her blonde hair fell softly over her shoulders, and this time, there was no hesitation in her eyes. She wasn't playing a role anymore. She was simply herself. Alex turned from the piano, surprised at first, then silent. The music he had been playing drifted to a quiet end. The song Sophie had loved, one he had played on repeat for years. Their eyes met. Lily stepped closer. He took a slow breath and placed his fingers on the keys again, but this time, he began to play a different melody. It was gentle, hopeful, a tune Lily once hummed under her breath while washing dishes, thinking no one had noticed. But he had. Her eyes softened. "You remembered," she said quietly. "I never forgot," he replied. He stood up, stepped toward her, and reached for her hand. His touch was warm, steady. "I have lived too long in the past," he said, "chasing ghosts, holding on to a life that ended too soon, and all the while, you were here, real, present, breathing life back into places I thought were dead." Lily's voice trembled. "I wasn't trying to replace her." "I know," he said, "and that's why you didn't. You became something else entirely." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of old pain and new beginnings settling between them. Then he smiled, and it wasn't a smile dipped in sorrow or guilt, it was something lighter, brighter. "You are not a stand-in," he said. "You are the first breath I've taken, freely, in years." He led her to the center of the room. Sunlight poured through the large windows of the newly completed space, wooden shelves lined with books and framed photos of everyday moments. A counter displayed Lily's photographs from her quiet walks around the city. There was a piano in one corner, a small coffee bar in another, and an open kitchen filled with the scent of cinnamon and fresh bread. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a skyscraper. It was home. Their home. Weeks later, the soft opening of their little cafe bookshop photography space brought in old neighbors, curious passers-by, and close friends. The vibe was warm, eclectic, filled with the kind of soul no designer could fabricate. In the front row, seated with a blanket over her lap and a twinkle in her eyes, was Alex's mother. She watched her son move through the crowd, laughing, introducing Lily with gentle pride. At one point, Lily leaned down and kissed the old woman's cheek. "Thank you,"